Welcome everyone to PhillyPoSH for July 3rd. Thanks for joining us. Tonight we have Ferdinand Rios, Dr. Ferdinand Rios, to present on building PowerShell GUI Tools solutions using Sapien PowerShell Studio 2014. So, hand it over to you.
Thanks. Hi everybody, thanks for coming by. At any time while I'm talking, if you've got questions, just let me know. More than happy to stop and answer questions and as I'm going along. So there are some flyers there, some flash drives there, and if anybody, this is a book that written by Don Jones and Jeff Hicks, all about making tools with PowerShell. And most of the book covers command line tools, but in the back there's a section on doing GUI tools as well. So it's actually quite a cool little book. So without any further ado, I'm just going to start real quick and talk about what our products are for 2014. This PowerShell Studio, which is our big PowerShell tool. It does anything that you want to do with PowerShell, including creating GUIs for your PowerShell script. But it can also be used, a lot of people mistakenly think that it's only for that. It can be used for any kind of PowerShell work that you do. It's got a full PowerShell editor. It's got 32-bit and 64-bit consoles in it. It's an all-around PowerShell tool. PrimalScript is a granddaddy product for us. It was our first commercial product we put out in 1998. It supports over 50 different scripting languages, including PowerShell. The only thing that it doesn't do that PowerShell Studio does is the GUI aspect of PowerShell, the creation of GUI code on top of your PowerShell scripts. So if you are in a mixed environment where you're still doing VBScript and PowerShell and maybe some other scripting language, you name it, it's probably supported, PrimalScript is a tool for you. iPowerShell Pro is our PowerShell reference and remote tool that operates on the iPhone and iPad, and that's $4.99. If you have an iPhone or iPad, go up and download it. It's a great tool. It's got over 3,100 PowerShell commandlets with the full PowerShell help in there. It's very easy to search, and if you set up a PowerShell web access server, you can connect with, well, it's really nice on a tablet because you've got a lot of space, but you can connect with the tablet and you can work on your PowerShell server remotely. Those are our three PowerShell tools. Version Recall is a cool little version control product that we just put out this year for the first time. I call it version control for the rest of us. How many people here are using version control?
E2, V3 stuff?
I'm sorry?
Just numbering things.
Yeah. That's exactly that. This is exactly the tool for you, okay? The idea behind this tool is it's a set it and forget it type of thing. You select a folder, you tell it, I want that folder to be version controlled. You tell it where you want your back end, your history, so to speak, to be stored. It could be on the same drive that you're on, although that wouldn't make too much sense, but an external drive or network share could even be Dropbox or some other service like that. And every time, well, depending on how you set it up, you can set it up so that it will create a new version when you want it to, or it will create a new version after a set amount of time, or it will create a new version at a certain time of day, so there are different ways that you can set it up. Everything is stored in its original format, so there's no database that you have to rip through. If your system goes down and you need to get an old version of a file, you just go back to a repository and everything is very clearly marked in folders where all your stuff is, and it's very easy to get the file that you want. We don't do differencing here, so every file is exactly the way it was saved. You don't have to go back and recreate it from a history. So it's a great tool for people that really don't want to have to deal with big source control systems like, Git or whatever else is out there these days. I don't know, Perforce. Oh my God, Perforce. Perforce is still out there, huh? Wow, man, I remember having nightmares using Perforce. For people that want a more traditional version control system, we have change view, which is, if any of you used SourceSafe years ago, this is similar in structure to SourceSafe. But that's more traditional, large projects, multiple users checking in, checking out, all that sort of stuff. Primal XML is our XML tool. Primal SQL is our universal SQL tool. So if you're working in a mixed SQL environment, Microsoft SQL Server or SQLite or MySQL or Oracle, you can use one tool to kind of connect to all of them. And then, of course, the Sapien software suite, which is our suite of all the products put together for the price of PrimalScript and PowerShell Studio. So basically, you get everything else for free. Well, except for that one. That one is not included. All right. So let's talk about tool making. And a lot of this is actually stolen from Don and Jeff's book. And that's the difference between, what's the difference between a script and a tool? Okay. So a script is something that you do that you want to automate frequently, or something that you do frequently that you wish to automate. But you can use that definition for a tool as well. With a script, it's something that's typically quick and dirty that you do, and quick and dirty, and typically something that you're going to use yourself. What does that mean? That means that you know that if you have you know exactly what to stay away from as far as input goes, so that it doesn't crash, because there are not a lot of checks and balances. But since you're the only person using it, then it doesn't have to be all that robust. Okay? Basically, this is something that's totally under your control. But now you have other people that might want to use it. And this is where creating a tool comes in. Tool is a script that you're going to hand over to somebody else. So what does that mean? That means that you no longer have total control over it. You're not there to babysit its execution. And if you're not there to babysit it, well, obviously, it needs to be more structured. It needs to be more resilient to errors. And it needs to be robust. And it really helps if it has a professional feel to it. Not just type in a couple of parameters and hope something works. All right? Basically, creating a tool is a step below application development. It's not as complex as a huge application, but it does need to be basically as robust as an application that you expect to use. Now, this book talks a lot about tool making. Like I said, most of it is not GUI based, and you can certainly do that with tools, with our tools of PowerShell Studio or PrimalScript. But I want to talk to you about GUI based tools. Why would you use a GUI-based tool? Basically, this is a tool that that's reusable, it's packaged, and it completes a task. Okay, and this is also true of non-GUI-based tools. But I'm kind of going to list a few things of why you're going to create a tool and then why GUI. The other thing is that you want this to be easy to distribute. And so you don't want to just distribute a script, because what happens when you distribute a script to somebody? If you give it to the right person, they know just enough to mess with it. The next thing you know, you're going to be getting a call, the script doesn't work anymore. I don't know what happened. I didn't do anything. Well, that's right. But they messed with it because they were looking at it and they were, oh, what happens if I change this, and so on and so forth. And then they forget what they did because they didn't use version control. So these tools have to be more secure than a naked script. And, let's face it, for a lot of things, having a GUI to the right user is a lot easier than having a command line tool. Now, you guys are all PowerShell people, so I know that you're all heavily into your command lines and sort of that sort of stuff, but how many people here write scripts that other people use? Okay. And are these users experienced, knowledgeable, or are they naive users?
It's a philosophical question. We're trying to get them there.
You're trying to get them where?
Knowledgeable
Out the door?
enough that we can trust them to use it.
Yeah, okay, good luck with that. Are they admins?
Yes.
They are admins. Okay, well, you might stand a chance. How about your users? I mean, do you deal with help desk people or?
A mix.
Yeah, and so there's always a group of people that they're never going to be admins, right? They're always going to be relatively naive users, and so you want to give them something that you're not going to be getting a call about every 5 minutes of, this, how do you do this, and so on and so forth. So if it was self-documenting, that would be really easy, and that's part of what a GUI does for you, right? Is that it's labeled and it says first name, and you have a text box where you put your first name and so on and so forth. So that makes it a lot easier for a more naive user. There are tons of tasks where command line is the best way to go, and PowerShell has shown us that, right? I mean, if you want to create 180 users in one fell swoop, you can do that with one line of PowerShell. All right, you don't want to have a GUI tool for that. But on the other hand, if there's an action that a user needs to do, maybe doesn't do it very frequently, or it's a very specific type of task, and the user is not a real techie person, then a GUI tool might be the solution for that. So how do you make a GUI tool? All right, well, let me rephrase that. You can write all the code by hand using PowerShell and .NET framework. All right. Has anybody here ever tried doing that?
Yeah.
Yeah? The sample that I'm going to do today for you is a very, very simple app. And one of the features of PowerShell Studio is that you can, let me backtrack here a second. PowerShell Studio, what it creates is it creates a form file for you, and it creates a PowerShell script file for you, and together those things are your GUI app. All right. You can tell PowerShell Studio to take all of that, combine it together, and dump it into a PS1 file. And you can run that PS1 file from the command line, and it will pop up your GUI, and it will work for you. The number of lines in that PS1 file, just for a simple app, I measured this because I did this export, came to over 5,000 lines. Now, there was some binary data in there which accounts for a couple of thousand lines of information, but even without that, you still have probably several hundred to 1,000 lines of script just to create a really simple GUI. PowerShell Studio helps to eliminate all of that. So the second way of doing it is by using an advanced design tool like PowerShell Studio. And I'm just going to pop up and show you some of the features that we offer in PowerShell Studio very quickly. One of the main things that people love is the script packager. The script packager allows you to take any script, whether it's a console-based script or a GUI-based script, and package it into an executable. All right. If you want, you can assign a different set of credentials to it. You can elevate privileges on it. You can do all sorts of things with it, and create an executable, and then you can distribute that executable to your users. So what does this help you do? Well, it eliminates the problem with people messing with the script, because this is an encrypted executable. It gets decrypted in memory so that there's no footprint on the disk, so people can't really be looking at the disk while it's executing. Now, it has been brought up to us that, yeah, but if you've got somebody sitting at the computer with a debugger, they can look at all this stuff in memory, so it's not really secure. Yeah, well, you should never really put credentials inside a script anyway, but if you've got somebody sitting at a computer with a debugger executing your scripts, I'd say you have a bigger security problem than just some passwords inside the script file. So we just added this here, the deploy tab. Deploy allows you to deploy in a number of different ways. You can create an MSI with it now. So after you create your executable, you can create an MSI. You can add files to that MSI, data files or whatever types of resources, package them all into, package everything together into an MSI, and then you can use whatever software deployment system you use to get that MSI out to people. You can deploy it out to a flash drive. You can deploy it out to a CD if you still do that. Deploy it out to a zip file if you want. So there are a number of different mechanisms in there. Let's see. We now have a script formatter in there, so you can tell it how you want your script to look. And when you hit your enter, your squigglies go here and there, and you're indented so far and so much, et cetera, et cetera. We have really, really smart syntax coloring. For instance, if you use and I'm not trying to get down on the ISE here because it's a valuable tool and that's not what I'm here for, but if you use the ISE and you type get-Sapien, which is not a commandlet, it will color it as a commandlet because it does its coloring based on kind of regex type of thinking. All right. We do things a little bit differently. What we do is you can use PowerShell Studio to query a server, let's say, and find out all of the modules that are on that server, and therefore you'll know all the commandlets that are on that server. And we will syntax color according to that cache. So, for instance, you're on your client and Windows 8.1 client, and you're writing a script for a Windows 2012 server. You can tell the client, give me all of the commandlets that are on that server, and now your script that's going to run on that server is always properly colored, even though you don't have those commandlets locally. Let's see what else. Function Builder is something new that we added this year. This is a great tool, especially for people that are relatively new to PowerShell and scripting. You can basically create a function with the proper comment help in there and parameters and everything else, all from within a dialog box. Just clicking, typing a couple of things, boom, it creates the whole function for you. Associated with that is, let's see. Oh, there's something in there also. Oh, here it is. Modules from collected functions. And it's something that we got a lot of requests for, and that was, I have a number of different files, and let's say I have 10 files, and inside all of those 10 files, I have a couple of SQL functions that I like. But I want to put them all together into a module. I don't want to go through and look through and cut and paste and everything. With PowerShell Studio, you can now just tell it, look through these files, and it will parse the files, and it'll give you all the functions, and you can just check off the functions that you want, hit enter, and it will create a brand new module for you and import those functions as well as any functions that are called by those functions. And so you can very quickly create a new module for yourself that has the function, just the functions that you need. And there's a bunch of other stuff. So I don't want to spend too much time on that because I want to show you stuff. So I will move on to that. Actually show you a demo here. Let's see, what is this slide? Oh, okay, good. So let's switch over to PowerShell Studio. So this is PowerShell Studio, running on Windows 8.1. Give you a quick overview of things. On the left-hand side over here, we have a number of windows. We have some panes that pop out. This one in particular, toolbox, is very important when you're creating GUI applications because these are where all your controls are that you're going to be laying out on your framework. But we also have this object browser, and the object browser has a number of different things. It's got we've got a PowerShell browser, so all of your modules are here, and inside each module, all of your commandlets. And so if you're writing a script, you can very easily just refer to this, double-click, and it'll insert that commandlet in there for you. let's see. We also have this is our .NET browser. So if you're writing .NET code inside your PowerShell, all of your .NET stuff is going to be in here. We have a WMI browser. So if you're writing any WMI commands, you can grab all your WMI objects from here. We have a database browser. So you can create connections to SQL databases, and you can grab all the fields and stored procedures and all that sort of stuff from there. And of course, a file browser just so that you don't have to jump out to Windows Explorer to grab files. Coming over to the left, to the right, our properties window, and you'll see how that operates in a few minutes. But basically, this is where all the properties for your objects are going to be stored. And our snippets pane, where is it? There we go. Snippets are stored pieces of code, so that, and I'll show you how this works. But basically, you can just double-click on something or use a mnemonic that you type in your script to extract snippets that will be full blocks of code, so that you don't have to write them. And one of the neat things about the example that I use for this is that, let's say you write 5 or 6 lines of PowerShell script, and you realize, oh, this has to be inside an if statement. So you can just select the whole block, select the if snippet, enter, and it will wrap the whole thing inside an if statement for you. Same thing with other kind of case statements, et cetera, et cetera. Similarly to snippets, on the other side, we have what are called control sets. And control sets take snippets even further. Control sets are kind of the visual equivalent of snippets. With a control set, you can have a number of different controls, and all the script behind them that needs to be executed, have it all packaged as one object, and you can just drag that object and drop it on your drawing board there, and all the functionality is there. So, for instance, let's say you see that you have a pattern of creating a text box with a little button next to it that when you press the button, it brings up a directory listing and allows the user to select that, and then it takes that file name and sticks it into that text box. You can write all of that ahead of time, save it as a control set, and anytime you need to use that, you just double-click it, boom, it's there, it's done. And we ship with a number of control sets also. Towards the bottom of our screen, we have our console. We have both a 64-bit and a 32-bit PowerShell console. They're independent of each other, so if you do something in the 64-bit console, switch over to the 32-bit console, do something else, come back to the 64-bit, it's exactly the way you left it. We have a 64-bit and a 32-bit debugger, so either whichever one you need to use, it's available for you. We have a find window and a help window on the bottom, and we'll show you how that operates in a few seconds. All right, so any questions so far? All right.
Can you create your own control sets as well?
Absolutely. You can lay anything out on the screen. You just select it all, right-click, say create control set, boom. It takes all the controls with the script that you've already written for those controls, and you name it, and it'll put it into a folder for you.
Is there a way to share control sets or snippets?
You can put all that into a shared location if you want, and then people can access that. All right, so I'm going to come on over to File, and just I'm just going to create. So we have different things that you can create. So just a plain PowerShell script, a form, project, or for much more complex visual programs that you're writing. And you see on the bottom we have this new module from functions, which is what I was talking about earlier, and the new module project. So I'm just going to create a form. I'm going to do an empty form. You have a number of different styles of forms that you can create here. Menu template, tab control template, all sorts of things. So I'm just going to create a very simple, because I want it easy. So there's our form. Okay. You can grab it, resize it. So the fake scenario that I'm going to use here is that you have a user that needs a tool that basically lists all the processes that are running on a particular machine, puts it into a nice dialog box for you, and the user could then press a button to email it to you or send it to you. So let's start with that simple scenario and create our form. How are we doing on time here? Okay, 6:30. Good. All right, so first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to grab let's go over to the controls, and I'm going to go grab a text box here. And I'm just going to drag that out, and you'll see that there's some little lines up in the corner there that just guides, and anything snaps to those guides so that things can be relatively well designed, because believe me, I've seen some awful designs. So that's snapped all the way to the end. Now you notice I can't, I can expand this right and left, but I can't expand it up and down. That's because the text box by default is single line. So I'm going to come on over to the property pane now that the text box is selected. And first of all, I'm going to sort these alphabetically because that's the way I can find them easier. And I'm going to look for a property called multi-line. And you can see that it's set to false. I'm going to double click on that, set it to true. And now I have a number of different handles, and I'm just going to pull that down and make my text box a little bit bigger. So I want to add a couple of buttons to this product here. So I'm going to come up to where it says button. I'm going to drag one button out and put it down on the bottom here. I'm going to grab another button and drag it out and put it right there. So I'm going to double click on this button. Whoops, don't want to do that, sorry. Let's come back over here to designer, sorry. I'm going to click on that button, and I'm going to change the name of that button to exit. And I'm going to, excuse me. It's, I'm going to change the title, sorry. Where is it? Text to exit. And I'm going to come over to this button over here, and I'm going to change the text on that to process. Or let's call that get process. All right. So very quickly, I'm just going to run this. So I'm going to go back to my home tab. I'm going to hit run. First time it runs, it's going to ask me to save it. I'm going to call that demo. And let's not save it there. Let's save it to my desktop. All right. Save. Yeah. Okay. So there it is. Right there. So far, I haven't written any code, right? So what do we have? We have a window. You can see that I've got, I can move that window around. I can minimize it. And of course, I just lost it. No, because I'm in a Windows environment, so I'm on a Mac, so I'm just going to have to, yeah, I know what I'm going to do here. Hold on. Stop! Go away! Let's see. Well, actually, it should have come down. Maybe this is it. Yeah, that's it. Sorry, it went down to my Mac toolbar. I've got two buttons. Obviously, I pressed them. They don't do anything. If I grab this and stretch it, the buttons don't move. It doesn't look very good. But I could also maximize it, and it looks nasty. And I can hit X and okay, so we've got the basic framework there. So let's fix some of these problems. So let's start at the top level, and that's the form level. All right, we can see that the form is selected by the handles that are all around the outside. So first thing I want to do is I want to change the name of that form so that people know what this is. So I'm going to come on over to the text, and I'm going to call that get process. I'm like the world's worst typist. And I want to make it so that when I stretch this window out, these controls do something that makes sense. So I'm going to select this text box, and I'm going to set the anchor points of this text box. Anchor. I'm going to set those anchor points so that it stretches in both directions when the window stretches. Okay, and I'm going to take this exit button, and I'm going to set the anchor point on that to the bottom right. And I'm going to set the anchor points to this get process button to the bottom left. Okay, so now if I run this, now you see that as I stretch the window, it all stretches with me, etc. So now we're moving, and it's got a title so that the user knows what it is. And I can even assign it an icon if I wanted to, so that when it shows up in my toolbar, it has a decent icon. So let's run that again. And if I was in Windows and I minimize this, it would actually have the right icon. So, all right, but you can see the icon up in the upper left-hand corner there. All right. So now it's working. At least the elements are working right. Let's add something to it, some code. So every control that you put on the screen has what's called an event or a series of events that are associated with them, and these events can be pushing a button, typing text, hitting a carriage return, that sort of stuff. What we do here is that when you double-click on an object, we send you over to the script, and we create what's called an event handler. And we choose the event that makes the most sense for that particular object. So by default, when you double-click on a button, we create a click event, because most of the time, that's what people are going to be doing. They're going to be clicking on buttons. All right. Now, so what happens is that this is where you're going to put your code in for what you want that button to do. Now, notice that this event has the name, button, the object, get process was the text that we wrote into the button, and then underscore and the name of the event. Have you ever written 10,000 line script or code or whatever, and decided that you're going to change the name of something? And now you have to do a search and replace through how many different files and make sure that you get them all, okay? If in PowerShell Studio, if you change the name of an object, we will automatically fix it everywhere for you. There's an option, you can turn that off if it annoys you, but it eliminates a lot of the problems. So as soon as I go back and change the name of that button to something else, this event handler gets renamed. Anywhere where that button is referenced as a variable will also get renamed. All right, so just another little tool that helps make things a lot easier for you. So what I want to do here is I want to run the get process commandlet, and I want to pipe the output from that commandlet and put it into that text dialog box, the text box that we had on the dialog. So first, I'm going to pop this open just so that you can see what happens here. So I start get dash, and as soon as I hit that dash, every commandlet that starts with get shows up. All right. As soon as I hit the P, it brings me down to the P section. RO. There's get process. I don't even need to finish typing. I just hit tab. As soon as I hit the space, notice that the PowerShell help for that particular commandlet immediately shows up on the bottom. And this is the full it's like typing get help, in the console. This is exactly that same exact help with all the examples, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, so if you're not too sure about a commandlet, you can easily do some testing here, type something, and get the help right away. All right. If this was a commandlet that had parameters that I wanted to use, as soon as I hit that dash, all the parameters show up for that particular object, and all the aliases that we have in the system for that. So you can put in your aliases for your parameter aliases as well as aliases for your commandlets too. And if you want to make it more readable, PowerShell Studio has an option where you can go up to the menus and tell it to swap out the full names for any aliases that are in your script. So you want to do something fast and you want to write a script quickly and you know all the aliases, but now you want to hand it over to somebody and they don't have a clue what all this means because there's all these aliases. You can go to PowerShell Studio, tell it to switch out the aliases for the full commandlet and parameter names. It will redo the file for you, and then you can hand that full file over to whoever needs it. Okay.
Does that work for existing PowerShell scripts? Like
Yes. Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah. As long as the aliases are standard aliases. If you have them inside your profile, then because we'll read that profile. Okay, so what do I want to do here? So I'm going to get process, but I need to put the results of this into something. So actually, I'm going to type $. As soon as you type $, all the variables that are in scope show up. Okay. For every object that you create on the screen, the form, the text box, the buttons, all those sorts of things, we automatically create a variable for you. And the name of that variable is going to be $. Well, the other one was the text box 1. So there's text box 1. That's the text box that I put up there. All right. We can verify that by just switching back to the designer, clicking on the text box. Whoops. Clicking on the text box and looking at the name over here, at the text. Where is it? Sorry, on the name. And there's the name, text box 1. So as soon as you create, if I change this now to, let's call that output, and I switch over, notice that the event handlers have changed, but let's get to this. I'm going to close this help window down here to get a little bit more room. Sorry. Notice that automatically changed to $output. Okay, so as soon as I change it in the properties, it changed it dynamically for me in the text. Okay, so we know that that's a text box. So as soon as I hit dot, all the properties and all the methods of that text box are going to show up there for me. Remember, this text box is a .NET object, and so we're using reflection to grab all of the information for that object. So I know what I want to do is I want to set the text. Also notice here, exclamation point, and here, our dynamic syntax highlighting, so that it knows that, hey, this doesn't make sense as it is. You need to check on that. Okay, so I'm just going to start typing. Well, there's the text parameter. So the text property of that object is going to get assigned the output of getProcess. Okay, and this needs a semicolon or something. No, getProcess is it? Is that right? I'm the worst PowerShell person in the world. Yeah. All right. So supposedly now it needs a semicolon. Is that right? Am I good without the parentheses? Well, let me show you another little thing, and this is the snippets. And since I really don't know PowerShell very well, I'm just going to come over here and I'm going to double-click on getProcess, and there is what I really wanted. So I'm going to change this variable to output. Okay, and that's what I really wanted. Of course, I didn't pipe it to outstring. Duh, sorry, it's been a long day. That makes sense. Okay, so getProcess gets piped to outstring. Outstring converts the objects from getProcess into strings, and then those strings get assigned to the text property of this output text box. So let's see how that works. So now notice, except for the fact that I typed in that one line, just by using the snippets, I saved myself a whole bunch of typing. All right. So I'm going to run that, and I'm going to hit get process, and bingo, we've got something there. Now the exit doesn't do anything, so I'm going to come up to this exit click button event handler here, and I'm just going to say $ form get process. That's the name of our form. .close, and that should close it for us. So let's verify that. I'm going to run that again. And there's my get process, hit the exit, and we're done. Okay, so that text in there looked kind of nasty. It was all messed up. So I'm going to play around with this text box a little bit more and set a couple of properties. First of all, I know that the font, I want everything to line up really nicely, so I should use a console-based font. Something that has fixed width instead of proportional width. So I'm going to come very quickly over here, and I know that there's a cool font called Consolas, and I'm going to use that. And there were no scroll bars on it, so I really couldn't get to any of the information, so I'm going to come down here, grab some scroll bars, turn on horizontal, vertical, both. And let's see how that's working so far. So come on over here, run, get process. Well, that looks much better. And there are my scroll bars. So now everything is nicely lined up, and it looks pretty good on there. And if I bring it in, it wraps, and that looks nasty. So the last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to turn word wrap off, run that, get process. Now when I bring it in, it doesn't wrap, and now I can stretch it out, and I've got a nice tabular output of that. Now I can very easily take all of this, select all these objects, okay, right-click, and create control set. So if that's a process that I do a lot, you know, if I have a pattern of creating apps that have a text box, a couple of buttons, maybe what happens when one of the buttons is pressed is different for each one, but I basically want the output always to go into this, you know, to a text box or something. You can select all those objects, right-click, create control set, you name it something, and it goes into your control set. Your saved control sets over here.
Question on control sets. If somebody's created a form and it has the same names that is in what you created, how will it handle?
I'm sorry, what was that?
So your text box is named like text box.
Yes, everything has to have a unique name on the form.
Right. So then if you're importing the control set that has the same name as somebody created something, same text box.
Yeah, you're probably going to get an error message. The control sets that we always suggest that if you're going to create control sets, that you kind of give them a unique prefix so that you don't have namespace.
But it will give you an error if you try to bring the control set.
Yeah, it'll give you an error on the specific control.
Okay. It'll tell you what's missed.
Yeah, there's already a control by this name, so on and so forth type of thing. Okay, so for the most part, we have our app running the way we want it. So what are the next steps here? Now, I don't want to give this, if I were to give this to somebody now, they would need PowerShell Studio to run it because I've got these two files, this PFS file, which is the form file, this PS1 file. I want to give them an executable exe file that they can just run. So I come up to my deploy tab, and I have a couple of different sections here. I've got a export, I've got a packager. This is where you export all of the script, form and script into a single PS1 file. All right. Packager. This is what I want to do. I want to package my file into an executable. So very quickly, I'll come over to the settings section to show you some of the things that you can do here. You can, give it a name, obviously, for the executable. You can select a platform, and I have a slightly older version of this app, but the newer one has all the way up to V4, PowerShell V4, And so you can see that this could be a Windows 32, Windows 64, or it could be a command line 32, command line 64, V2, V3, V4. We have tons of different options for how you want to package this. All right, so this is a PowerShell V3 x64 Windows form. You can give it an icon if you want. You can create a manifest. Here you can. This is where you can give it alternate credentials. So if it needs to execute with a higher privilege set on the server somewhere, you can do that. Remember, this is not just about forms, right? This could be a command line script that you wrote that you're creating an executable out of. And so you might want it to run with different credentials unattended somewhere. You can do all that. You can sign your script very easily here just by selecting certificate, password, etc. It will sign your script. Oh, by the way, asterisk on that. One of the cool features of version recall, our version control product. Let's say you sign a script, right? And you don't create an executable, but you just sign a script. If you then check that into version control, and someone else takes the script and modifies it, it's invalid, right? It won't run because the signature doesn't match. Version recall is very, very smart about that sort of thing. If I put a script into version recall that's signed and it gets changed, the version recall will automatically re-sign the script for you. So it's a very, very handy feature to have.
Credentials in there, where are the credentials stored?
The credentials are stored in the executable. I'm not saying this is the best security practice, okay? But there may be occasions where you might want to do that. Now, it's all encrypted, and it's all decrypted in memory, so you don't have a footprint of a file that gets written to the disk. But, again, if you have some guy sitting at the computer with a debugger, they could ostensibly find this information. All right. Yes?
In the run mode, do you have an option that prompts for different credentials, different user?
I believe so. I'm not sure 100%, but I'm pretty sure that yes, you can.
So if you want to run it as a different user with
elevate the privileges.
Not only elevate, but
just a different user.
Different. So
yeah, I'm pretty sure you can. I can get a definitive answer for you if you give me your email address at the end. Okay.
Well, what are your options under run current user price system?
Impersonate user, run as user. There you go. Something that we added this year: execution restrictions. So you can choose what kind of machine and what operating system this script will run on. So if you only want it to run on Windows 8.1 machines, you can tell it to run on that level of machine. Well, this should only run on XP machines, and so on and so forth. And so you can give it that type of restriction. If you want to keep version information, you can do that here as well. And then if you have like pre-build commands or post-build commands that you want to execute before and after this script gets built into an executable, you can do all that here.
One more question
sure.
on execution.
Mm-hmm.
The restrictions.
The restrictions, yes.
In the username, can you use system environment variables here, like %, username %?
I don't know. That's another good question. Write that one down. I'll get answers for you. Trust me. All right. So I'm just going to hit OK there. So our settings are done. So I'm going to come on over to Build, and I'm going to hit Build, and it's going to ask me for a location to put it. I'm just going to throw it onto my desktop. And oh no, that's where it built it. Sorry. Let's do that again. Build. Okay. So demo. Oh, there it is. It's highlighted. Demo exe. So notice that it has a generic icon. If I double click on it, there's our file. There's our little program. Get processed. That works. Everything works. Exit. So there's our executable. Okay? So now let's take this a step further. I have the executable, so I have a script in the form, I have an executable. Now I want to deploy that executable to wherever, a group of people. I have a deployment system, whatever that is. So I want to create an MSI. So now I come over to installer. I select settings. I can give the installer itself its own name, product version, company information, product type. So that could be a script application, a Windows application, or a PowerShell module. An icon for the installer itself. A couple of items, whether it's a 64-bit installer, whether you want to install for all users, whether it requires administrator privileges. This is where I can add other files to the installation package. So users can now add resources to that installation package, whether it be via ZAN or image files or text files, whatever it is that you want to include in that installation. You can add them here, and you can even sign the installer itself. Okay, so all that looks good. So I'm going to come and I'm going to hit build the installer, and where's my window? Oh, okay, there it is. There's the demo MSI. So what happens? I double click on that demo MSI. It launches Windows Installer.
You also make it a standalone executable?
Well, that's what it was the step before, the executable. We created the exe the step before this.
Why do you need an installer?
Because some people want to, their company may have a policy of everything has to go through some, what do you call that?
Registration and SCC uninstall.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, deployment. You have some kind of deployment system, yeah. And oh yeah, we have a lot of customers that, that's how they deploy PowerShell Studio.
But yeah, our stuff is that it should be a silent install.
Right.
Well, not only that, but you can't run portables, you can't run standalone. That's easy.
Well, if it's going to be given to a user at our company, it should be something that can be installed or dropped onto a system. So technically, if you wanted to just drop the standalone file, you could put this, don't have a script, and just have it as one of the files to drop.
So if
It's probably more for support files for the executables or the script, so they can drop, say, an ELL that script is going to register or something.
Trying to figure out where to put it. Let me see. I ran the MSI. So you'll see if I go to my control panel and I go over to my programs and features, there's my demo. It's been installed in the system, and let's see where it shows up here. It should show up here somewhere. Yeah, I don't think that's where I put it. It should have put an actual demo folder here, so I'll have to check and see what's going on with that. But you do see that it has been installed, and you can come here and you can uninstall it as well. So for people that need silent installation, distribution, deployment systems, this is a really great tool for being able to deploy all that stuff automatically. I'm doing it on time. Good. Okay. A couple of other little things. So that's kind of the whole process. Scripting, create an executable, create a deployment. And so what we're doing with this version of PowerShell Studio is we've created a whole cradle-to-grave, so to speak, workflow. And I don't like using the word workflow around PowerShell users because that means something else. But it is a workflow where you start from a blank slate, write your script, whether it's a GUI interface or not. You can create the executable, and that executable you can either just send it to somebody, or you can create an MSI for use in a deployment system. That's the full package. A couple of other little things that I'd like to show you. And that is this module. Let's go over here. New module from functions. So I'm going to select these 3 PS1 files that I have here. I'm going to hit open. And notice what it did. Here are the files. It went through the files and it parsed them and pulled out all of the functions that it finds in those files. Now you can go through these. Actually, let me pick a different set. New functions, and let me come up to. Let's try it. Okay, here we go. Let's take those 3. And you'll see here that we have dependent functions. So if you select a function, it will also include whatever reference function. So if you're calling a function that is also calling a function, it pulls in that reference function so that you don't have any kind of dangling calls that don't go anywhere. And so you have a choice. Well, yeah, I don't want that one from that file. I want that. I don't want that one. And I don't want that one or that one. And if you want to add files, you can do so from here. You can give your module a name. And you hit create module. And now I'm going to close some of these windows off. You'll see that all those functions got automatically brought in for you. So again, using the scenario that I mentioned earlier, if you wanted to group SQL functions from several different files that you had and create a SQL module, very, very quick to do that using this technology.
With the GUI, do you have to import all your functions, or how? I guess for each function you want, it has to be in the script somewhere. Can you just make sure you have all your functions available by importing files?
You can create, if you're gonna be doing something that has a lot of different files, a lot of different PS1 files, you can create what's called a project, and then the project it gives you a lot more management tools for all that. So you can have several different form files. You can have several different PS1 files. As a matter of fact, this came up in a talk that I gave at Microsoft in San Francisco. Was someone said, well, I want to create something that if I run it on core server, which doesn't have a GUI, then it needs to run as a command line. But I also want to use the same file if I run it on a regular Windows Server, Windows 8.1 or whatever, it has a GUI. How would I do that? Well, you can actually create a project, and in that project there is, we have event handlers for when the application first starts, okay, before any GUI is created. In that event handler, you can check to see what platform am I running under. And if I'm running under core, then branch out this way and do that and never create the GUI. If I'm running under something that has a GUI, then branch out this way and execute the form mode and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, you can get pretty sophisticated with this stuff. The other new feature that I wanted to show you is this ability to create a function simply by filling in a dialog box. So I'm going to come on over to Tools. Am I in Tools? Sorry. How about Home? Build Function. So if I hit Build Function, using this dialog box, I can create pretty complex functions with lots of parameters, et cetera, et cetera. So let's say I wanted to create a function called getSapien. So I start typing GE, and it knows the common verbs that you'll find. So if I don't type anything there, and I just hit the down arrow, you'll see a list of all the kind of common verbs that you find in PowerShell. So I'm going to type get, and I'm going to call that getSapien. And you can give it a synopsis, a description, and here's where you set your parameters. So my first parameter is going to be, I'm going to call this name, and it's going to be of type string. Notice code completion everywhere. The second one is going to be, let's call that one date. I just want it to be date. And that is a date time. And notice that we have here parameter sets. I can create parameter sets and then assign parameter sets to those parameters. So you can get pretty complex. If I come up to this little icon here and click that, this allows me to go even further and create even more complex parameters. And so I'm going to call this, I don't know, red val, whatever. Blah, 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 blah. I can give it an alias. I can give that parameter an alias, RV, no dash, just RV. I can give it a type, and I can add validation to it, so I can allow nulls, etc., etc. You can see how complex already I can do all this for parameters. So now I hit OK. That parameter shows up on the bottom here. And let's give this an output type of string and hit OK. Boom. If you now look at what we've put out here, we have, first of all, we have the comment help all filled out, synopsis, description, okay, the parameters with their names and the descriptions, all the different parameters, an example of how it's used, the output, any additional notes that you want to add in there, and there's our function with all of its parameters, and if I had assigned that to parameter sets, those would also be included in there. Very easy. All right, I think I deserve an applause for that. Come on, guys. So, how are we doing on time? We're doing good. Okay, good. Questions? Anybody have any questions about any of this? Yeah.
There's the GUI tools. You have best practices anywhere. GUI within a GUI is bad or anything like that.
We don't have a document for best practices. There's some stuff in here that Don and Jeff talk about towards the back. Anybody here, VB script person or VB coder, VB script? You know, when Visual Basic first came out, let's just say that there's an amazing slew of really poorly designed applications. Designing an app is an art form in and of itself. And things, of course, have gotten more sophisticated over the years. I always try to follow the KISS principle. Keep it simple, stupid, right? Just try to keep it focused on what it is that you're trying to accomplish, and don't overwhelm the user with information or colors or things like that on the screen. That will usually be a poorly designed app. Anything else? All right, so you're more than happy to move along here. So let's get back to the slideshow here real quick. All right. So what you saw me demonstrate very quickly here is this idea of cradle-to-grave development, starting from a blank slate and being able to give your end user a fully packaged MSI that they can install just like a regular Windows application, and if they need to uninstall it, it's all there available to do. I showed you Function Builder, so that helps. That's another tool inside of PowerShell Studio to make complex development easier for you. We have the complete write, test, and rewrite cycle built in. So you test, debug, fix your problem, go back, test. It's very easy to do this. The debugger, like I said, is a 32-bit and 64-bit debugger so that you can set breakpoints, look at variables, states, etc., etc. Again, creating the script with the XC with the script packager and deploying it with the MSI builder. So it's everything that you need to finish off the product. So now I'm just going to open up to questions about this, questions about any of our other products, whatever you guys want. Yeah, shoot. Keep talking. I'm going to go grab a slice of pizza.
I used to use a product called WinBash.
WinBash, yeah, I remember WinBash.
With that, it had an executable. Whenever you ran the executable, it had to drop other files there. Is this the same way, or is it all? I mean, does it drop support files, not necessarily code?
No. Where you are executing your file, it needs to have PowerShell, the right version of PowerShell, and whatever modules your file, your script calls out to. So there's no runtime, we don't send any runtime with it. The only thing that gets sent in the executable is basically your scripts and the forms. So you do have to have the appropriate version of PowerShell and whatever other modules that you might need that you call to from within the script. Next.
Here's the build on that one. Will the installer at runtime check for those? Like, say you try to install something that requires like PowerShell 3 or PowerShell 2 system, will prompt an error saying, hey, PowerShell 2 is going to
The installer doesn't, but from within PowerShell Studio, you can target any machine on your network, and you can say, validate this script against that machine, and it will send back a report, and that report will basically tell you, oh, that machine is missing this module, so we want to execute this command with it, et cetera, et cetera. And so you can use that script now with the what's the new stuff that they just introduced in PowerShell? Yeah. With that, you can imagine using that script to basically have the
actually pull whatever you need.
Yeah, to pull whatever you need to be able to run that script. Yeah.
But is there any way to do a pre-execution thing, like say you own your Windows XP, but you need PowerShell 3?
Mm-hmm.
Any way to say, well, because say you're going to run it on 100 machines, and one machine doesn't have it, doesn't have PowerShell 3, it says PowerShell 2. Or Windows 7.
Well, not directly, not the way you're thinking now. Like I said, you could create a script that that basically goes through all the machines that you might want it to run on and create that report for you, and it will let you know, yeah, it'll be fine on that machine, yeah, it'll be fine on that one, no, it won't be good on this machine.
Do you use it? I never heard you say SCCM. Are you using SCCM? Build into the task sequence as a condition.
I'm just saying for general purpose.
You're asking like through the MSI
like
tool creates, like would the MSI check for dependencies?
Well, even in executable, I guess like first line of your code. You have to.
Well, yes, you could do that.
Yeah,
you could always, and then exit gracefully, put up an error message. Yeah, I mean that's good coding practice, absolutely. But it won't even run if it's targeted with a certain version of PowerShell, and you don't have that version of PowerShell. It won't even execute it. It'll probably give you an error message saying that it'll probably output to the PowerShell window that this needs a different version of PowerShell.
I can do an action.
Yep. Thanks, sir. Somebody got a question?
The question is, in PowerShell view, when you have option to view executed file, you have what option you can run for them?
Yeah, you can the execution policies that we added, you can
Check over some, you can run anything you want, right?
Yeah.
So that's why we don't have problem with I don't know, the XP or I don't know, the window 8.1.
Yeah, I mean, you could exclude something or you can include everything. I think by default, I think that it's easier to exclude than it is to include. I think by include, I think it'll run without any exclusion policies if you don't check any of them.
Let's say that you do a start process regen,
and that's embedded in there. And you launch the executable with a run as. Does that pass along your credentials? Anything you're starting from within there?
I don't think so, because you're running a separate process, so it doesn't. I don't believe that it passes those credentials to an external process. That would be kind of a security.
I don't know if it's keeping the shell as that. You're talking like when you run command window as, or run PowerShell as administrator,
Right.
and anything you do in there is administrator. That's what you're talking about, right? Yeah.
So if you run regedit from the command, the PowerShell, if you're running PowerShell as an admin, and then from within there you run regedit, those credentials get passed over to execution of regedit.
That's in the context of the who spawned that process. So you can use
I'd have to ask the engineers about that. Offhand, I really don't know for sure.
How about a design question? Is there tabs available? You make a tab for like a different page.
Which one of the controls? Let's see if it's software. Let's see. I guess it's come over to the controls. There should be. Let's grab that one. There should be a tab control right there. So you can put a tab, and then you can have controls on each of those tabs. Yeah.
You also have multiple forms per application of it.
Yeah, if you want to use multiple forms, you create a project, and then you can have multiple forms that way. And the forms can be totally independent of each other also, so they don't have to be dependent on the existence of the other forms, so on and so on. Good pizza. Living in California, I forget what good pizza is.
Is there, you mentioned support for, like built-in support for version recall. Is there support for third-party version control stuff?
Absolutely. We talk to different, as long as it has an MSSCI provider, then we'll talk directly to that. Yeah. So Perforce, I believe, was one of them. Source safe, I don't know what else is out there, but
Git
I think
Sapien.
if there's an MSSCI provider that basically converts, talks to us, we'll talk to that, and then that'll talk to the source control system, whatever that source control system is on the back end. So, other questions?
Is there a lot of PSFs out there, like community? Are people creating their own for redistribution so you can cheat and save some time?
The PowerShell.org forum has a section on creating GUIs, and I believe that redirects back to scripting answers, which is was created by Don Jones years ago when before Don came to work for Sapien, and obviously predates when he left. But we have a lot of stuff up there you can take a look at. So that's where users go. And there's no central repository, so to speak. Like you're talking about, like what Microsoft is doing with the NuGet stuff. We're hoping that there's enough people out there that want to do that. We just don't have the resources. We give you some stuff, and we give you a bunch of different control sets. We would love to see people create more control sets and put them out there for the public, like get it through Git or something like that. That would be pretty cool. So it's really a matter of how much people want to contribute to the community. What else, guys? You've been playing Stump the Expert today, so you're gonna flying monkey.
Do you think there's a stigma against GUIs?
A stigma.
The first thing I'm going to encounter when I get back and talk about this is, well, we're trying to get away from.
So don't if you want the product, don't sell it as a GUI tool. This is the perfect environment, for writing any kind of PowerShell script. You want to write PowerShell modules. You want to write. You want to create your own commandlets. You can do that. It doesn't have to be a GUI. Now, you get the GUI for free, right? So if you're doing all this other stuff, and then all of a sudden you create a GUI for somebody, they're like, "Wow, cool! I didn't know you could do that." It's all PowerShell. So, yeah, don't sell your boss or whoever controls the purse strings on, "Oh, this is a GUI tool." And this is where I think a lot of people kind of, "Oh, I don't need that. That's a GUI tool." And it's much more than that, which is why it used to be called Primal Forms. That's why we changed the name to PowerShell Studio, because it's more like a Visual Studio tool for PowerShell. It allows you to do any kind of PowerShell development, not just GUI development.
I noticed when you created the module, it automatically created the PSD1 and associated files. Is there anything else that it will do, like if you're writing workflow or maybe doing new stuff with DSC?
We support all the workflow stuff as well. Now you're getting a little bit too deep for me. I'm just the CEO. I don't write the damn thing. You're lucky I know this much about it. No, I mean, I talk to the engineers all the time. My CTO, we're always talking, and he's always, they're always letting me know what new things they add, but I can't keep it all straight all the time. So, there's a 45-day trial. All of our products come with a 45-day free trial. So if you download any of our products, you can use it, explore it for 45 days. We've got forums. You can ask questions on the forum. Even if you're not a registered user, there's a forum there for people that are thinking about buying the product and have questions. 9 times out of 10, you don't even have to wait for an answer. There's usually somebody that's already asked a question, but we also, our support guys answer stuff like so fast, it's ridiculous. And our engineers really, really want to hear from you people, because whatever feedback we get from you guys, we're not PowerShell users ourselves, okay? My guys are all C++ developers. And so, we have to talk to you people about how is it that you use PowerShell and what are the types of things that you want to be able to do easily and quickly. And so we have a forum that's called Wishlist or Feature Request Forum, something like that. You'd be amazed. I have had situations where somebody has gone up and said, I really wish that PowerShell Studio would do this. And the engineer saw it, and I swear within 24 hours he had it in the product. And it was right at the tail end of a build cycle, so it went out the next build cycle like within a couple of days, and this guy was like, "Oh my God, I don't believe you guys did that already." So we really do listen to what you all need and what you want. So be on the forums. That's our best place for getting input from you guys, and things like this as well. So how am I doing on time? All right, I'm gonna probably have to wrap it up. I do appreciate you guys coming out today. And like I said, grab some flash drives and some information. I'm not taking any of this stuff back home with me, so if you want to keep it here for your next meeting, be my guest. Who wants a monkey? You know how to use these guys? You put your fingers inside here, and then you grab his legs. Oh, wait a second. You pull this tab out, and then you grab his legs. And you annoy people.
They're best at conferences where you have a big conference room floor and you can shoot them with other vendors.
Absolutely. All right. Well, thank you very much. And
So, John, I actually have to. Give him a ride back to the train station.
Yeah, that's all. Yeah, that's all I want to be here. Is there anything you want to talk about?
Volume licensing?
Yes, that's available. Just send an email to sales@sapien.com and we'd be more than happy to accommodate you.
If I have a version of PowerShell Studio 2012, there's upgrade pricing.
There's upgrade. We just switched to a subscription model, so if you get a subscription for a whole year, you'll get any updates that we do for free. On top of that, if you need or want, priority support type of stuff, we also sell a priority premium support package, and you'll get access to the engineering and support teams through our ticketing system. So, pricing $389 per user. If you want the premium support, that's $99.
They'll let me know how to
Yeah, I do. Let me know too.
You might be bigger hammer.
Sure.
No, we don't have PowerShell Studio, we have Rios.
Oh, okay.
And we have an older version. And it's like a super old version, and we really planning it is we need it for GUI Tools.
Oh.
So you can always do
All right, everybody. Thank you very much.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a happy holiday, everybody.
Yeah, we have a 4th tomorrow.
Does anyone want to talk about anything, bring anything out? Call it a night. Okay, then. Call it a night. We don't have anyone lined up yet for next week. We're thinking of, next month, yeah, sorry. We do have Stephen Borowski, currently trying to figure out a date. He's the guy who used to be behind Stack Exchange, huge DSC component. He was kind of using it in early beta stages and got it all.
Microsoft talks with him.
For
their
their.
figure out a lot of their early DSC. He was an early adopter of DSC.
Yeah, and
he spoke closely. He was one of the DSCs.
Yeah, yeah, to the point where he's the de facto expert outside of Microsoft. So he's gonna let us know when he's available. He just actually started a new job. No, he didn't say where. He's on the PowerScripting podcast talking about it and didn't say where, but he will be there soon. So if not, I think we'll have some user-generated content, just like Toledo about some stuff I want to do.
Software?
It has
at
a
least at the summit that had the software on it.
Yes.
So it may be, and then there's a trial version. So they're fully functional trial versions.
These are.
Yeah.
At least from the summit, if they're like the ones from the summit, then that's it.